Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. We've got Venture Minerals back with us today. They've just finished they've just collected their results from their recent rare earth drilling in their Brothers project. Venture Minerals is VMS, the code. Current market cap is about 29.5, and as we speak, the share price around 1.5, 1.6 cents this morning. So Andrew Rodonjic is back with us. Andrew, welcome back.
It's good to be back, Noel.
Andrew, tell us about it. Highly anticipated.
Yes, look, great results we put out just the other day. The thing about it, what we've been chasing is on this project, we pegged it to around about 50 to 80 kilometres east of Yalgoo, next to the highway, gas pipeline, good infrastructure, and not close to any population centres, which is good from a development perspective. But what we were chasing was thickness and grade, and we believe this very first air core reconnaissance program has achieved that. With intersections of up to 45 metres at 1500 ppm total rare earth oxides, and with a high grade core of around up to 15 metres at over 2,500 ppm. I think that puts us in good stead and probably ahead of a lot of our peers which have entered this clay-hosted rare earth space.
We've had the luxury of talking to a lot of rare earth guys recently. Your grades are definitely up there. Your intercept's definitely up there with the best, especially your grade. I mean, you mentioned that your variability, your high grade is 15 meters at 2,000 plus 2,500, if I remember, ppm, and things like that. So, is there any sort of, obviously there is some difference, or do you know of why you are more enriched, do you think, than the rest? Any early ideas?
Look, yes, look, we've got interpreted granite beneath us, and certainly, as always, a lot of the geologists are focused on the greenstone belt. So, and the granite's kind of been, I think we've spoken about it before, hasn't been well known about. So your data sets are quite often concentrated on the greenstone. So hence, to try and look at any variations in the granite areas has been low priority. Unless people have been looking for things like diamonds, or in the past or done enough detailed geophysics to determine what they may be, and more importantly, drilling. So the reason we're out there is because of that. The JV ground we picked up with Iron Duke, at 49 metres at 1,300 ppm. Majority of the intersections in clay, but the grade drops off marginally. Still, just under 1,000, and what's been interpreted to be a granite. But when you look at chips, it doesn't quite look like your traditional granite. It looks a bit different. But they've only drilled tens of metres of that, so it's very hard to speculate what it may or may not be. There is some mag features out there. What they mean, it was actually drilled as a carbonatite target by the previous owner back in 2020, which we said before. They didn't recognise potential of the clay-hosted rare earths because all this is relatively new. Even though 2020 is only 3 years ago, things have changed a lot, as we know. So very early stages. I'm a little bit loath to sort of speculate what it may or may not be. It may be one of your traditional sort of granites. It may be a granite, it may be different. Those little nuances are going to make differences in your resource, your met recoveries of particularly your magnetic rare earth oxides. So that will come with the test work we're going to do in the future, but we need to do more infill. And we are focusing mostly on the clay hosted at this stage, and maybe later on we start poking a few holes into the hard rock once we do a bit of geophysics to determine what might be better, deeper targets to try and delineate what it could be. So early days.
Yeah, because you are very deep. I mean, those dim sets quite big. The only other ones I've seen is probably maybe Indiana, but I think they're more. This is what I hear is that more paleo channel kind of style. Whereas yours is very deep, and obviously you've got history of a basement down there that looks different. But It's from all the conversation. It seems to be that there's a few types, I hear in China there's actually more than a few types. But at the end of the day, it's the takeaway from that is that almost all the met's about the same, plus or minus.
Yep.
And so we all know all going to recover, and we all know now. I've been saying this, in a few of the discussions on the Coffee Samso, is that we move from ion is better, this is better, that is better too. It's all about the economics, really, at the end of the day, because there's beneficiation and stuff like that.
Yeah, the industry is going to mature quite quickly because there's a number of us heading down this pathway, and we've got a huge variability in depth. One of the holes went down about 115 metres. The transported cover is probably the determining factor there, and that's pushing us a bit deeper. And then we've got stuff from 5 metres in some cases. So it just depends where you are on the weathering profile. And there's outcropping or subcropping granite out there as well. So it's a mixture. We've got 1,165 square kilometres. You'd expect some variability within that, and we've seen that even just drilling this initial 20% of that area so far. We've seen the variability in terms of the weathering profile, but despite the depth, we're just seeing reasonably consistent, that sort of broader 1,500 ppm section, broader zone, and then you've got a higher grade zone, that core running around about 2,500 ppm.
So what's your strategy with this project? Obviously, is there your thought on how do you want this project to drive to? Obviously, if the gods are fair with you.
Yes. Look, we've had a look around in the market before we, the rare earths is something we stumbled across in Mount Lindsay, and Tasmania is great for mineralisation of almost any type. And no surprise to find some rare earths there. But and then we went to Golden Grove with the Vulcan target up to 12.5% total rare earth oxides, which our new JV partner Samso will be drilling for us later this year. And then we started looking at whether we could peg land, and we were using soil geochemistry initially to guide us in, to lead us in, and that's where the Brothers project comes from. But we look around the market, and a lot of the companies are of a similar market cap, but Meteoric are the shining beacon, if you like. 400 million tonnes, roughly 2,500 ppm, and it's $400 million, which is probably potentially 10 times most of the other ones. So we wanted to get something like that, and we believe that with this first pass program that we could get, our target was 1 billion tonnes at around 1,500, and maybe get a high grade core of about 400 million tonnes at about 2,500, to be exactly the same. But the difference being is that we've got a Meteoric, but it's sitting in Australia. It's not sitting with farmlands and little farms sitting on top of the ore body. It's sitting in an area which is very remote. Not too remote, as in terms of infrastructure. The Port of Geraldton's not that far away, really. So we've got the infrastructure there enough to develop an asset. So we wanted to get something that we could stand out from the market, and I believe we've got the first indications of that. And that's always been the plan, Noel, not to just develop another asset which is sort of some are sitting as sub 1,000 or into low thousands. Our idea was to have something of a scale with a nice high grade core that sort of mirrored the Meteoric resource, and hopefully we can likewise have an asset we can develop, and obviously with all the met work and the mining and all those studies, etc., that can be the same sort of value proposition as they're looking forward to deliver.
I'm assuming the focus is going to be on Brothers at the moment. Are you going to do some rare earth work on the other projects?
Samso will be drilling the target for us at Vulcan, so that's they'll drill one hole there, and if it ends up with something interesting, then we'll do further work beyond that, because we retained the rights over the whole project. The Coolin, we identified some targets. Obviously, Koolan's a little bit more challenging because it's in farming country. Things take a little bit longer. There's cropping season, all that sort of thing. So, but Brothers will probably be, in terms of the rare earth play, will be our main focus for now. It's much quicker turnaround, quicker drilling, more cost effective, and that sort of also helps its ranking in terms of prioritising. The work at Mount Lindsay, we'll have something shortly about the studies on the tin borates. We wait we spoke about Sensor, but also Chalice to do some more further exploration work on our other assets there. So, that's probably the main four things we're doing, and at Venture.
Are you doing any METS tests out of the recent
Yes,
samples?
absolutely. Yeah. So, as you've alluded to, it's not. They're not all the same. These assets, they'll have some, these rare earth clay hosted. We won't say ionic because we don't know how much of it is ionic. We don't know what the recovery of it is. So you have to get that test work done early before you start getting towards inferred. So by the time we've got in something drilled out to inferred, which we think will, you can do some fairly broad space air core drilling and that our peers have done to get to that point. So I think we can achieve that quite quickly. But we need some network. We need to know if it's, how much of it's ionic, maybe look at some pre-con work as well, a little bit later down the line as we get more advanced. But, we want to be pushing towards getting a, JORC inferred resource, with any luck later this year.
Obviously, with the new rare earth story and everything else, how do you want the investors to see you now? I mean, VMS, how do you want that image to be?
Well, at this stage, Mount Lindsay remains our flagship asset, for obvious reasons. We've spent $50 million on it. It's right up there in terms of 10 tungsten deposits in the world. And if we can get this tailing stream delivering more revenue to the bottom line, then that'll have a huge impact in terms of the underground pre-feasibility study. So, which is what we're hoping to pull those numbers out, within the 12 months now. So once we've got those sort of processing and so it's capital and operating costs for that tailing stream, remember it's already been mined and it's already been crushed, so it'll be relatively cheap. And if we can generate revenue that adds to the bottom line, that'll be a much more advanced development, you would think. But if the Brothers project delivers what we just spoke about, then that could potentially move ahead, and then we'll have the issue about, you can't, to develop two assets, do we spin one asset out? We've always talked about spinning out some of our other assets into another vehicle. We would have hoped that Koolan, Golden Grove North, or even the Southwest project could have delivered that. It hasn't happened yet, and then all of a sudden the Brothers projects come from nowhere virtually, and that could be the reason for putting out a separate team, concentrating on developing this. So the spin-off would be the obvious solution. Certainly Mount Lindsay is not something we'd let go, but we just need to have two different teams focused on two different assets. Because, if you've all of a sudden got an open pit, shallow, near surface, and all of a sudden, if it's adding hundreds of millions of dollars to your market cap, it could actually blow Mount Lindsay out of the water, because Mount Lindsay hasn't had that next 12 months are going to be Mount Lindsay's in a bit of a holding pattern while we're getting this, very important met work done on the tin borates. Whereas all of a sudden you've got this ore body materialises from almost nowhere within that same period of time. So we'll have a very interesting decision to make, potentially in 12 months.
Decision.
Well, that's right, a good decision, and certainly, it's always good to have more than less.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think from all the conversations, I guess, I've had that fortunate luxury to have talked to many people about the rare earth industry. So I think there is, it feels like it's in the ashes, but I think the pricing in the whole market is still hasn't even come up yet. Anyway, but I think you're at this, if that your Brothers picks up, I think you will have some interesting times to decide what to do.
Well, not every project that's out there will get developed, and we just want to get ourselves to the top of front of the pack, if you like. And so we're obviously going to come from a long way back, as they say, but we're looking to sort of leapfrog and get to the front of the queue a little bit. And we think that grade, thickness, or scale, and location will be very, very important.
News flow. What's the news flow? I know we touched on a few things, but yeah.
Yeah, look, the idea will be to get out onto Brothers again. A lot of those tenements that are now granted now, which weren't before. So we're looking to lock in some more air core drilling, low impact air core, and that's probably next phase. Maybe some GFIs as well to maybe look at targets at depth later, or maybe even look at some targets which may, for some reason, deliver higher grades or better thicknesses, etc. So if you're going to do your first open pit, you want to be mining your best stuff first, as close to the surface, the most economic. Collecting the sample for metallurgical test work, infill and stepping out drilling. So fairly active in that space at Brothers. I think we'll be generating a fair bit of news flow just out of that. In addition to what our JV partners are doing, at Sensor and then whatever work they do down on the Southwest project. And like I said before, we'll be coming out pretty soon about some selecting a group to do the hydrometallurgical work on our tin borates tailing stream, if you like. And that will obviously give people some sort of idea and timeline, and that will generate, as in, we've got a method, and then all of a sudden we'll do some more additional pilot scale type work where we get processing costs, and we just need enough data to put into the pre-feasibility so we can re-optimize things. So there's a lot of tons sitting outside the current mine plan, which we haven't released to the market because we believe that we could potentially make the mine 2 or 3 times bigger with success on the tin borate stream. So yeah, there will be a fair bit of news flow over the next 6 months from various sources, as it turns out, it'll all happen at once probably, which pretty much happened in May. We did 2 JVs in 2 weeks, but the Sensor one didn't happen that quickly, whereas the Iron Duke one did, and that was just fortuitous. Yeah, look, I think we did a pretty good deal with Sensor anyway, but it did take a bit of time. But who knows? They may deliver a copper or a lithium discovery with their AI technology. So that's it's always sitting there.
Last thoughts. Ventures had a very interesting journey the last year and a half. How should you sell to those guys?
Well, Venture's always got plenty of options. I think I've said that 100 times, but or more. But any one of those could be a company making change to this business. I do recall that just over 2 years ago we had a market cap of $200 million. It was on the back of a high iron ore price, which who knows whether that'll happen again. If it does, well, we've still got the same asset. We've seen a tin price go $50,000 a tonne. We've seen Charles's activity now in the Southwest project. Any one of those things can reappear. Yeah. But now we've got the added benefit of a Sensor, smart guys, proprietary technology, looking at a very good piece of land. We're very selective about areas we choose, and yet again, that one of those may prove to deliver. And they're always sitting there lurking in the background. Coolum project, we'll get that up and running. Very similar again. And then, now we've got rare earths. We're not, if we sat there like some of the tin-focused companies or tungsten-focused companies, we would have just about shriveled up and died. Would have been, market cap of sub 5 million. Even people talking about lows of 30 million for us is still quite significant. And there's a lot of the rare earth plays are sitting around that mark. And that's why we think we need to go and push for a big one. And we quietly confident the brothers will deliver a meteoric type resource quite quickly. And if you can add $400 million to our market cap, then That's a good thing. So, shareholders got to remember that we provide several options, and if we spin off companies, we've got lots of possibilities, and we're very nimble. We're always looking at opportunities, and we're not a one-trick pony.
I must say, when I first saw your brothers and stuff, I thought, that's interesting. When, getting that there. But when I saw the results, it's comparative, if not better than most of the ones I've spoken to. Initially, obviously, you just drill intercepts at this point in time, but it just looks, good depth, good grade, lots of room for error. Will be interesting to see where you can build that into a decent resource, and if you did with those kind of parameters, then, mate, that's big rabbit you pull out the hat.
Well, it's not the first time.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, I'm going to let you go. I know you're very, very busy, and look, it's a good update on brothers, and as I said, I was quite impressed with the numbers, and good luck with it. I think you might be on a good thing there.
Right. Thank you very much, Tom.
All right.